Welcome to another edition of Jet Setting. Ken Wiebe, Scott Billick, both with Winnipeg Sun. Kenny, wrapping up another year of Jets development camp here. They had 4 draft picks from the 2019 draft. It was just last weekend now. What stood out for you? These things keep getting, they sometimes get smaller, sometimes they're bigger, but it just seems like these things, I know development's in the name, but it seems like these things are just purely about that, about getting to know the players and just getting kind of established in the team setting.
For sure, Scott. I mean, it's all about culture and sort of how the Jets want to have their players train and their off-ice portion and things of that nature. Obviously, the on-ice portion, it's not an evaluation. Nothing that happens during this week impacts what guys will do at training camp. I mean, it will help them become more comfortable, but there's nothing that they do on the ice that will raise or drop their stock in terms of the coaching staff or management. But for a session like this, it's important to get a baseline for a player like Ville Ainola. They're a first-rounder from this year, especially because he's under contract to his team in Finland, probably won't be playing over here this year. So it's important to establish a baseline for guys like that. And also for a guy like Andrei Chibisov and Yuna Luoto, guys that the Jets just signed as free agents. We didn't really know a lot about them, but in a camp like this, it's natural for them to stand out. Chibisov especially because he's an older guy, and also Luoto, one of the best players in the scrimmage, I thought. Really a mobile guy, and a guy like CJ Cease, a guy who's been to these camps a lot, needed a medical exemption because of his age and experience level, but he had an unbelievable training camp with the Jets and had a really good start to the season with the Moose before his separated shoulders. So for him, those guys stand out, but they also stand out mostly because of their age. And then on the back end, a guy like Dylan Sandberg, he stands out because of his size. I mean, here's a guy that's a mountain of a man on the back end, probably headed back to the University of Minnesota Duluth. At least that's the plan for now. And from there, we'll see what happens. He's probably going to finish his junior season and then reevaluate and likely look at signing maybe at the end of the year. But again, those things are always in flux.
Yeah, and just one other player maybe we can talk about is Christian Vesalainen. Of course, the Jets, prized first-round pick from a couple years ago, probably getting ready to make a push for the team this year and should play a part at something. How did he look? He didn't play a part in the scrimmage, minor ailment, and he left practice yesterday a little bit early as well. What do you see from him? Just a brief on synopsis of how far his game has come along.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it looks like his game has developed. Looks like a guy who played in the KHL last year for a good chunk of the year. I mean, it was an interesting year for him. Obviously, started in the NHL, got those 5 games, went down to the Moose, chose to go back to Jokerit, back home, play for his hometown team, which was his contractual right. It was an up and down year from there. Had some success early, and at the end of the year, he didn't play as much as maybe he would have liked to, but showed a lot when he came back. I mean, he said to us early in the week he wasn't ready for the season to be over, so it was natural for him to come back and rejoin the Moose. And this is a guy that, given the Jets' state of salary cap crunch, he's not only going to have to be in the organization, he's going to have to be on the NHL club. I mean, he's going to have to earn his job, but I expect Christian Vesalainen to be on the team. Whether that's in a third or fourth line role, that will be up to him. But I mean, for him, it's also a good experience for him in order to be one of the leaders at this kind of a camp. Mm-hmm. He's still young in terms of experience and age, but he definitely stood out above the majority of the pack just based on the level he's been playing at.
You talked about the salary cap crunch. That's a good segue, given that the Jets still have 2 big-name RFAs that haven't been signed yet to big money contracts in Patrick Laine and Kyle Connor. Just what can we talk about in terms of just an update on those 2 contracts? Is anything moving on either side there?
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine things will start moving in the next little while. I mean, I would even argue that it's 3 important RFAs to sign. I mean, Andrew Kopp is not going to get the monster deal that Patrick Laine or Kyle Connor will get, but given his versatility and ability to play up and down the lineup, Andrew Kopp is an important signing too, and he's a guy with arbitration rights, and we expect him to file for arbitration if they can't get a deal done before that. I mean, is he in the mix for the second-line center role? I would not rule that out at all. I mean, we know that Paul Maurice likes him on the wing, but he also trusts him at center. I mean, I think that he could be in that mix with Brian Little and Jack Roslovic, and I mean, we won't know what will happen in free agency yet, but we expect the Jets to maybe go after a fourth-line center, which would create a little bit more of an opportunity up the lineup. Sure. I don't see Andrew Kopp being on the 4th line with the Jets this year under any circumstance. I see him playing a second or third line role and going from there. In terms of Connor and Laine, of course there will be teams that will be talking to them in interest during the RFA period, but I don't see a scenario where the Jets don't match any potential offer sheet, nor do I really expect there to be an offer sheet. I mean, we talk about this almost every year. It's a different crop of RFAs, but I think the Jets will get things done with Laine and Connor. It may take a little bit longer than some fans may like it, but I mean, when you're looking at an $81.5 million cap ceiling compared to what we thought would be 83 this year and maybe 85 next year, I mean, those projections are very important. And the other thing to look at too, starting July 1st, the Jets can get an extension done with Josh Morrissey. Now that Jacob Trouba has moved on and is looking like he'll stay with the New York Rangers, I think it's important for the Jets to get Morrissey's deal locked down sooner rather than later. And
yeah, we have July 1st right around the corner here on Monday. It's a bit of a whirlwind going from the draft to development camp to July 1st. Can we expect much from the Jets on that day, or are they really kind of held down right now by those the two RFAs that they have, 3 RFAs as you said?
Yep.
And where those pan out in terms of what they can do on July 1st and how much money they can start throwing maybe at some free agents out there.
Yeah, I don't see the Jets shopping in the big ticket item aisle other than their own guys in free agency, Scotty. I think they will be looking at guys on the periphery. I think they're looking to add some depth, maybe on the back end, maybe a sixth, seventh defenseman, maybe a fourth line center that can kill some penalties. That's where I would see the Jets dabbling in the free agency market. We could see them active in terms of maybe a salary dump. We've seen some teams move some salary out. We know we've talked a lot about Matthew Perreault. He's a guy the Jets value, but right now he's a luxury item at $4.4+ million. If he's not going to be in the top 9, that's a number they can't really afford. It was much like last year where with Tyler Myers and Dmitry Kulikov, it's a steady third pairing, but that third pairing costs $10 million, and the Jets just can't afford those type of numbers. So, I mean, there'll be a lot of eyes around Kulikov and Perreault, and maybe even a guy like Eric Comrie. Is he a guy? I thought he might have been moved at the draft, but with Mikhail Burden kind of taking on a little bit more of a role we expect this year with the Moose. But I don't think the Jets will be super active in free agency, but I think they'll be looking at players around the edges. We know they've already signed a couple of free agent forwards in Logan Shaw and Seth Griffiths, guys that they've had before. Mm-hmm. There may be another defenseman in that kind of category, the depth defenseman area, but I think the internal stuff is the biggest portion of the big plate that Kevin Cheveldayoff referenced earlier this week. And then obviously getting their RFAs done. I mean, that's their top priority moving forward.
Yeah. We'll be back with you on July 1st on Canada Day to wrap up Free Agent Frenzy. For now, it's been another edition of Jet Setting. For Ken Wiebe, Scott Billick, thanks for watching.